got like 7:05, so we'll go ahead and get the inland wetlands meeting underway. Bruce, do you want to do a quick rundown of who's here?
Will do. Robert Hannon,
I think I'm here.
Robert Eisner, here. Ned Statchen,
Here.
Richard Berlandi, David Fox,
Here.
Neil Kelsey,
Here.
Mark Simpson,
Here.
Robert Canto,
Here.
and Emily Brick. All right, Emily's not here, and as I said, Rich is not here, but he emailed us earlier in the day that unfortunately he's unable to attend. So you're all set,
Bobby,
Chair.
you'll sit in for Rich.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You'll sit in for Rich because he's not here
Oh.
tonight.
Okay,
So first item up is a public hearing, 80 South Road LLC and
Mhm.
Sega Development LLC, 62 South Road.
Okay.
So notice is hereby given that the Inland Wetlands Commission will hold an online public hearing on Wednesday, October 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. via an online web conference on the following application. 80 South Road LLC and Sega Development LLC application for regulated activity with an upland review area to construct 65 multifamily units and 2 buildings at 62 South Road and lots 8864 and 8880 South Road. Interested parties are encouraged to participate in this online public hearing. The link, there's a link. People may be able to get on the town website. I'm not going to go through what the link is, but a copy of the proposal is online with the Farmington, Connecticut org/government/conservation and the Wetlands Commission public hearing documents, or call the planning department at Farmington Town Hall 860-675-2325, dated in Farmington this 27th day of September 2022. Wetlands Commission, Robert Hannon, Chairman. So with that, I believe the applicant would be here.
Yes,
Is
this is Tim Hollister. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Hannon and Commission members. Attorney Tim Hollister representing the applicant. Full disclosure, I'm not in my usual seat tonight, and believe it or not, I have a golden retriever sleeping at my feet who I've asked to behave, and we'll see how it goes. Phoebe Sager and Jeff Sager, as principals of the applicant, are with me. Megan Raymond and Matt Sanford from SLR Consulting are here as soil scientists, and Jeff Board is our professional engineer, Baller Engineering. And Megan Raymond has an appointment in about 45 minutes, so I'm going to get her on, and then hopefully if there are questions for her, I can also excuse her early on. So just very quickly, procedural compliance, the required notices were published, mailing and signposting were completed, and proof of that provided to staff. The property which you heard about on September 21st is 2.92 acres on the south side of South Road, presently vacant property. You took your site walk with applicant and town staff on September 25th. Our expectation tonight is that we will make a brief presentation, 15 minutes or so, and then Mr. Sear and town staff have given us several dozen site plan comments, which we are working through. We expect to be able to respond to them all, but we have not finished that as of tonight. So our assumption is that we will continue the hearing after tonight and hopefully complete our work with you on the next meeting, which I believe is on November 2nd. So I'm just going to ask Megan Raymond to describe the site wetlands and functions and her evaluation impact assessment, which you should have a copy of, filed last week. And then Jeff Board will present the updated site plan. So Megan, go ahead, please.
Great. Thanks a lot, Tim. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Megan Raymond. I'm a professional wetland scientist and registered soil scientist with SLR. As you are aware from our first meeting, obviously we have a hearing tonight, but our first meeting, we described our involvement with the property. Bruce, could you please put on the next slide? I think we might have an existing conditions, maybe the one with the aerial on it. Perfect. This is great. Thank you. I became involved in the site actually, well, 8864 site, the central property, in 2018 for the Andy's Italian Kitchen application. But what we have here tonight, and obviously we have north pointing straight up on this map. The project is comprised of, or the site that we looked at, study area, is 3 parcels of about a ½ acre site, 60 moving from west to east, 62 South Road, about a ½ acre, 8864 South Road, about a little over an acre, and then 1.4 acre to the east, 8880. 2 wetland resource areas exist on the site. We have a forested wetland system with poorly drained Wilbraham silt loam soils derived from glacial till. And then we have a drainage corridor that is ordinary high water, demarcated, that flows about approximately 110 feet to the south through the site. This area picks up some drainage. It looks like it was ditched. There's a wetland system between Middle Road and South Road. It enters the site with twin 36-inch pipes, exits the site or a little bit off site to the south, adjacent to the I-84 connector, through a twin 36 plus a 12-inch at that point. And then its drainage from this area is conveyed to the south onto Batterson Park Pond. Eventually the Connecticut River is the eventual fate of drainage from this area. This topography on the site is relatively flat, but we do have a slight pitch to the east on the western side of the wetland and to the west on the eastern side. Functionally, we do in this forested drainage area, or about a 2,000 square feet. It's quite small, but we do see seasonal inundation there of about a 12-inch water column. And because of that, we did go through in 2021 and complete a vernal pool investigation here, comprising of site visits during the seasonal opportune time to identify breeding amphibians. We did not see any indication of that. With our site visits, obviously morphologically it's potential, but the water column is quite shallow, and obviously we're looking at a fragment of a habitat here with the amount of development to the south, to the north, to the east, to the west. Functionally, the wetlands do provide a good some nutrient assimilation with the depression. The primary function of the watercourse is generally, conveyance. And obviously the functionality of these systems is somewhat constrained by their size. Overall, collectively, the 2.92 acre project area, wetland resources between the watercourse and the wetland occupy about 2%, but we're looking at about a 44% occupation of the upland review area that extends obviously to the west and the east here. In between, we do have a little bit of an upland, about a 0.2 acre area of upland area in between the watercourse and the wetlands, demarcated by a shallow stone wall. That is a summary of the existing conditions, and I'll turn it to Jeff to describe the site plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan. Bruce, can you go back 1 slide just to the overall site plan? Perfect. Good evening. For the record, my name is Jeff Board, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Bowler Engineering, located at 65 LaSalle Road in West Hartford, Connecticut. I have over 16 years of civil engineering experience in a variety of sectors, including the nature of the project that's before you this evening. Our office prepared these site plan documents that are before you. As Megan described, existing conditions consist of 3 parcels, 62 South Road, 8864 South Road, consisting of 1.57 acres. And then the 8880 South Road portion to the east that consists of 1.35. North is also to the top of page on this exhibit. What you're seeing here is just an overall site plan that depicts the 2 buildings and the 2 multifamily residential structures that flank either side of that existing channel that Megan described. Building A to the west is a 36-unit, 3.5-story structure with a footprint of 11,350 square feet, while building B to the east is a 3-story structure with 29 units that consists of 10,425 square foot footprint. If you start on the left-hand side, building A, we provided 2 full access driveways onto South Road, where we're proposing 52 parking spaces, 2 of which are handicap accessible. We've also provided an amenity space to the east of building A, consisting of porous concrete, along with several patios for the ground floor units. Part of our coordination with the town was to provide a sidewalk along the entirety of the frontage, thus connecting the existing sidewalks across South Road It's the last piece of that stretch. So it should interconnect all the sidewalks now in the vicinity there. Building B to the east, we just have the one full access driveway onto South Road. We're proposing 52 spaces, 2 of which are handicap accessible. And we have a similar porous concrete that we've designed in conjunction with the town comments we've received to the south of both buildings A and B. We do appreciate Farmington's one of the few towns that goes through such a thorough review, and we really feel that it does provide a lot of value to the project and the overall plans itself. So to Megan and Tim's point, we did receive that letter last week from Bruce and staff. We've gone through all of those comments, are confident that we can address all of them and submit a response to comment letter that basically says exactly that and what plan changes are. We're also confident that the plan changes from what you're seeing before you this evening will be rather minimal, even though there's quite a number of comments that we're going to be running through. With regards to stormwater drainage, starting on the building A side, and I guess holistically for the entire development, we have complied with the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, as well as the MS4 permits that are currently in place in town. We did our best to match the existing drainage patterns on site, which, as Megan described, currently drain on, I guess, on the western side. They go from north to south, and then they flow to the east to that existing stormwater conveyance. And then on the eastern side of the site, it also heads north to south, but then it heads to the west towards the existing stormwater conveyance culvert. So both properties collectively head towards the center of the site to the south, and then go under those 2 culverts that cross underneath I-84. So what we look to do from a design standpoint is basically match the existing flow patterns that exist on site. We look to reduce the peak flow rates that get there for the 210, 25, and 100-year storms. I believe one of the comments we got last week was to also include the 50-year storm, which we are happy to do. There's a series of stormwater BMPs that on a site this small, a lot of times we're not able to incorporate natural and subsurface structures. In this case, we were able to include several areas for above ground infiltration. We have a couple of below ground infiltration basins. We were able to introduce porous concrete on the south of both of these buildings in the parking areas and in the amenity space. And then on building A particularly, we were able to incorporate a swale along the front of the building in between the roadway and the building itself that went into a series of 2 rain gardens prior to exiting via a level spreader into the wetland area there. So the goal being is we were trying to mimic existing drainage patterns on both buildings A and buildings B, and respecting the wetlands and the like. Bruce, if you go to the next slide. One more. This slide. So we prepared this slide, and it's basically just a blow up of the existing grading and drainage plan. And what you're seeing in red, and it's kind of hard to see on this plan, but the red tree line essentially is what you're looking at. And those are basically from the previously approved drawings that this commission had approved a few years back for both of those applications. And we just wanted to show, you know, we started with that in our design plans as far as where we were laying these buildings out to try to respect that even further. So on building A, we shifted it even further to the west, away from that tree line, and it gave ourselves a decent buffer up against that wetland boundary there. And similarly, on the east side, we went through multiple iterations, and third iteration in, we kept kicking it further to the right or to the east to just get away even further from where that previous line of disturbance was. We did implement a soil erosion and sediment control plan that is consistent with the Connecticut Erosion and Sediment Control Guidelines. And basically what that is we have silt fence along the perimeter. One of the town comments we got was to provide silt socks in addition to silt fence. So we've done that as well. We'll have inlet filters on all the catch basins, and a temporary construction entrance and a soil stockpile that's surrounded by silt fence and silt socks as well. And that's a high level overview of the civil drawings. And at the end of the day, we're not disturbing any wetlands directly. I think part of the feedback we received, and I think it was an important piece of feedback was, if you zoom in, Bruce, right there where your hand is, from our site walk, the commissioners will remember, originally we had a drainage design that had discharged the curbed roadway runoff from the DOT highway directly into that culvert there. And when we were on site, I know that entire area of riprap had been kind of eroded away and destabilized, if you will. And a lot of the commissioners had concerns and requested that get replaced. So on the set of plans that we'll be revising, in addition to addressing Bruce's comments, we'll also be proposing to repair that riprap and basically stabilize that channel back to what it should have been under the proposed condition. And on top of that, as you can see in this plan, particularly on the west side for building A, we've pulled back that discharge point from the DOT right-of-way and into an actual rain garden on our site that will then overland flow and level spread into that wetland area. And on the east side for building B, we did something similar, where instead of a direct connection with a flared end section that could potentially erode that bank further, we provided that level spreader with the slot drain that comes out to discharge just that little infiltration row in the front. So that's a very high level of input we received from that site walk that I feel will benefit the project moving forward here. So with that, I'd be happy to turn it over to Megan. I think she was going to close with some of the wetlands information here, and I'll be happy to answer questions after Megan's complete.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Yeah, so just to kind of advance Jeff's description here as it relates to wetland impacts, since our last meeting, we did prepare a wetland impact analysis that focuses in on the potential modifications to these resources as a result of this site work. As Jeff described, we do not have any direct wetland impact for the project. There's no direct impairment of the wetland area or the water course. So when we then kind of look at potential modifications to these resources, we focus on indirect impacts, and those relate specifically to stormwater management and sedimentation and erosion control. The site is long linear. But there are a lot of opportunities, and Bowler's done a great job with incorporating low impact design elements to allow for improvement of water quality, while it also addressing the increase in, or the potential modification with increase in impervious through additional stormwater volume. And both of those features in combination will allow for maintenance of hydrology of the wetland, as well as maintenance of water quality within this small watershed, which is about, I think it's about 0.16 square miles of overall watershed that we're looking at holistically, obviously, for the site. The site lies within that area. Sedimentation and erosion control is going to be managed on the site. Obviously, we have a very flat site, so that works well with that. The use of retaining walls will also serve as permanent demarcation and assist in sedimentation and erosion control in that regard. So there was a lot of thought looking at the site in laying out the property and laying out the project to maintain buffers to the wetland and the water course. We obviously, the 8864 and 8880 sites both have previous approvals on them. 862 South Road has no wetlands, no upland review on that parcel, but obviously a single family dwelling was there. But the limit of disturbance was an important exercise to overlay, just to make sure that we weren't doing any additional encroachments into the tree line that wasn't previously approved. And we actually are a little bit, provide a little bit greater buffer to the wetlands. Looking at the drainage channel specifically, early on, just given its feature as an engineered feature, there were potential thoughts of potentially piping that and having an ability to access the site inter-site, right? Not use the sidewalk, not use South Road, but have an inter-site connection. But looking at the functionality of it, even though it's small, it just, that alternative was considered and discarded because we could maintain the corridor, maintain the resource in combination with that little bit of upland between them, and as well achieve the project purpose of increasing the housing typology in this part of town. So holistically, we're looking at this project as no adverse impact to wetlands and water course on the property. We did run through this before, but in terms of significant activity, we did evaluate the activities as it relates to significance as stipulated in your regulations. Obviously, we have no direct wetland impact, so we don't have any deposition or removal of material from the wetland or water course We're not modifying the natural channel or dynamics of the watercourse. We're not diminishing the capacity of the inland wetland or the watercourse to support aquatic life, animal habitat, prevent flooding, water supply, assimilate waste, etc. We're not creating turbidity, siltation, or sedimentation. We're not creating pollution in the wetland or watercourse. We're not diminishing the flow of the watercourse or wetland. We're not damaging any unique wetland or watercourse areas that would have an effect on scientific or educational value. We're not creating, not causing adverse impact to function. And with this conclusion, because of this, we meet the burden for no feasible and prudent alternatives have been satisfied. That being said, we did go through quite a bit of alternative analysis internally as a project team to ensure that our site plan was solid as proposed, and that's the plan you have before you. That's only going to improve with your thorough engineering review. And again, I think the team does appreciate that as well. So I'm going to close my portion tonight. Unfortunately, I do have time constraints, but my colleague Matt Sanford is on to answer questions, and I can be on for another 10-15 minutes or so. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back to Tim to close. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Chair, that's everything we have to present tonight.
Okay, thank you. Given the fact that Megan may have to leave fairly soon, I think the way I'd like to do this is see if commission members have any questions that may come up, and then we can open it up to the public. So Ned, I'll start with you tonight. Questions, comments, concerns?
There you go.
Bruce, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was
Thank
trying to
you.
get to my
Okay.
unmute.
I thought it might be me.
I really don't have any specific questions. I just was looking at that the areas where the drainable bituminous is being used or something. I guess a little more information that like how that works, and how do we be sure that the material that makes up the bituminous mix doesn't, with the water going through it, doesn't leak into the, or doesn't leach any kind of chemicals into the soil.
Yeah, and I can take that. I know that was a comment that we received early on in trying to incorporate these natural BMPs. We provided an under drain as an added measure, and this was done at one of the locations in town that worked rather well with the manufacturer that actually installed it. And we provide an operations and maintenance manual for the cleaning and vacuuming of those, pervious areas. And the under drain basically takes that storm water and puts it into an underground infiltration system that's got a sediment forebay and an isolator row within it to treat water quality. So there's kind of a belts and suspenders approach with regards to that porous concrete. So basically at the end of it, to the very south end of that parking structure where that porous concrete is, there's a perforated pipe that carries that water to the underground system.
Okay. And
I was blanking on the name of the coffee shop, but I think it's Rebel Dog Coffee, I think, is the one that implements it, and it was well done at that location not too long ago.
Okay.
So here's the pipe. Here's the permeable
There's a pipe
pavement.
underneath. Yeah. Okay.
Comes in and then comes into the storm drain
Exactly
system
right.
there.
Okay. And does that piping handle the roof drainage as well?
So the roof drainage in this case, we actually had, given the space that we had, it goes over to that infiltration basin that we provided in front. We don't have like a wild seed basin mix associated with it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Ned. Mark?
Yeah, the only question I have, I do realize the both buildings are within the 150-foot review area, but how close is any construction to the wetlands area, and the water course? It's hard to try to figure out what the distance is.
Yeah, I know on the west side in particular, it's close to 30 feet, 31 feet, I believe. And then on the right side,
Okay, I can see it better now.
My eyes aren't what they used to be, but I think it's close to 25 feet, 27.
27.
Yeah,
Yeah,
27.
27 it
That's
says.
close.
All right, I can see it better now.
Right.
All right, thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Mark. Robert?
I don't have any concerns. I think the project team and specifically Jeff and Megan, both tonight at the public hearing, but also the site walk, overview the project. I think the information tonight addressed its only indirect impacts, and the project team took into consideration all the normal items we would look for. So I don't have any concerns about the project. That's the end of my comment.
Okay, thanks. Neil, I may have done it out of order, but you're next.
It's okay. Just going back to the permeable bituminous, will traffic or cars be parked on top of that, or is that off the side of the parking lot? Number one. And number two, you showed us where it went through piping underground on the west side. Can you illustrate that on the east side as well, please?
Sure can. So there is parking on top of it. It was similar to that Rebel Dog Coffee application, where on the low side of the parking lot, you incorporate that pervious asphalt. Similarly, there's a dashed line towards the north end of that parking lot on this plan. If you go up to the top right, Bruce.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
right in there, there's a dashed line. That's the underground detention. So similar to the other side, that infiltration, there's a pipe, perforated pipe that goes into that basin before discharging to the level spreader just to the bottom or south of that transformer. If you zoom in.
There we go.
There we
Go
go.
down this page, next page. Here
But
we
it's,
go.
they're both very similar in how they connect to that porous pavement. So if you zoom in on that, there's a pipe that comes from the porous asphalt up into the underground detention system. And then there's an outlet pipe that goes down to a level spreader that basically discharges the groundwater to where, or the surface water to where it's currently going today. And then it goes through a natural swale over along the southern property line into that existing culvert. So there's multiple measures of water quality treatment throughout the process prior to it getting to the channelized stream that's there.
Okay. And maintenance on that, you know, with cars on top of it, compression, things like that. Any thoughts on maintenance and how often it maybe need to be replaced or repaired? Or
I'll double check we do prepare an operations and maintenance manual as part of our drainage report, and it gets buried in the back of a 400-page drainage report. But in that document, it describes the measures for the contractor and owner to take as far as all of the stormwater BMP. So not just the impervious asphalt, but the catch basins, the rain garden, the underground detention systems. And basically what it does is there's a frequency of cleanings and methods to clean out these different structures at various times. So it might be biannual. I'd have to look to see, but it's at the manufacturer's recommendation as far as the vacuum truck basically that comes out to clean that. Impervious
And
asphalt.
Neil, we usually require this to be vacuumed. These don't parking lots don't get swept anymore. Because it's the permeable pavement as an open grade, they come through with a vac truck and they'll actually vacuum out these areas.
okay. Any concerns about settling, or does it have to be rebuilt over a period of years if, you know, since cars will be sitting on top of it?
Personally, I don't have concerns with that. I think the product has come a long way. And I know from experience just up in New England, it hasn't been used quite that much. And I think in the future, it's going to start to be utilized more often as they perfected the product. And a lot of the contractors are more familiar with laying it down. Some of the earlier installations of that, you know, were rough in the sense the contractors didn't know how to install it. I think as you've seen at the Rebel Dog Coffee, that's proven to be installed very well, and there's been good success with that. So I think it's something you'll start to see incorporated more and more, even up in New England here.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Was that it, Neil?
Yes, nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
No questions.
Bobby?
No questions. I think it's a very well thought out program. Great explanation, both here and through the walkthrough.
Okay, as usual, I have some questions. I mean, part of what was discussed dealing with the parking lot. So can you talk briefly about snow removal and then any type of treatment that might be applied to the parking lots in the wintertime?
Yeah, I know from our end, as far as the treatment, I may defer to Jeff and Phoebe here, but the snow removal areas itself, we do provide snow shelves in concert with our landscape architects. So along any of the perimeter parking areas, they do provide landscaping that's more hardy and susceptible to having snow piled up. In this case, given how small it is, there are areas along the perimeter where you could stockpile snow. In the event of a 1 or 2 foot event, it may have to be trucked off site depending on where that is. But one of the benefits of what we're proposing here with the way everything lays out is that there's multiple areas on site where that snow melt would get into a stormwater basin, which would then be treated for water quality, where a lot of projects, you don't have the benefit of having the stormwater best management practices spread out throughout the site. So I do think that definitely goes into our site design considerations as far as where we provide curbing and landscaping and alike. So I think on this case, there'll be plenty of room for snow storage for a parking lot this small.
And then how about the treatment?
Yeah, the treatment, I don't have that information as far as what kind of treatment is used, whether it's just salted or
Well, this is why I'm asking, because for example, if salt is being used, what kind of impact might that have on the wetlands? And if sand is being used, what kind of impact might that have on the pervious concrete?
Yeah, Chair Hannon, Jeff Sager, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you, Jeff.
Okay, I hear an echo, I don't know why. We use the DEP, I have to get the exact product name, but we use the DEP approved ice melt. I forget what it is, but it's not sand and it's not salt, it's whatever that, perhaps you know the name of it. I can get it for the next meeting.
Okay. No, it's a question I had. I just want to at least get it on the record as to what we're looking at for the site and how it's going to be handled.
Yeah, and I think to that end, Bob, if you're looking at this particular page on building A, if the snow is pushed to the north, that snow melt will make its way into that basin, be treated, and then head out. And then if it goes into the porous pavement, there's that perforated pipe, and then the vacuum truck and everything else that they're going to be cleaning that out with. So I think from a snow removal standpoint, there's multiple ways that this gets treated, including the treatment of the actual DOT highway as well. Because now that we brought that in, before we had direct discharge into that stream from the right of way, because right now there's no curb on site. So basically it's just a curbless road. And on site with you guys, we had heard concerns about those direct discharges, and we changed that. So now it goes through multiple levels of water quality treatment prior to entering the wetland area.
Okay, no, thanks. Bruce, can you bring up something with one of the slides where we have a better shot of the eastern building? Yeah, that one is good. If you can blow that up a little bit, please. This is just sort of a general question in terms of the grading that's being proposed on the site. I'm assuming that there's room there to get both the silt fence, which you're talking about, and the silt socks down at the base of the hill so that nothing is really coming off onto, I believe that's state property for the highway. So is that correct?
That's accurate. Yep.
Okay. And then the one other, it's not so much a question, but as my understanding is that the drainage pipes that are there, they were man-made, installed a while ago. I'm assuming though that the channel was pretty much the same thing. I mean, granted, it's not a pipe, but based on what I remember out there, is it appeared to be man-made. There was riprap. So I'm kind of looking at this as maybe more of a maintenance process to refurbish that area. And as yeah, the riprap is part of it, but there also seem to be a lot of growth, smaller trees and things of that nature within that channel area. Are those also coming out?
That would be the intent, and specifically in that area. And Bruce, I don't know if you go to one of the other plans, this was the old plan. You could see the direct discharges into that area.
Yep.
That was the initial plan we submitted right from the DOT right of way. The colored rendering had been updated to show what that looked like, or that wetlands exhibit. One more, Bruce.
No,
Oh,
that
other
was
way,
all
I'm
part of
sorry.
the presentation.
Other direction.
Mm, mm.
One more, I'm sorry. That one right there. If you zoom in on this, I think this one had been updated for our new stormwater. So you can see those direct discharges
There you go. Yep.
are now gone. And that area of dark riprap was that area in the field that we identified. There was kind of some plant growth, and there was basically just soil and that riprap that was supposed to have been where that dark riprap is shown had washed away. And there was nothing there. So the intent is to basically clean that whole area up and then put back that riprap that should be there now, just to help stabilize that channel.
Okay, and then I think when we were at the site, if I remember this correctly, there also appeared to be a bit of a drainage swale that it was located up along where the sidewalk is being proposed and sort of draining into this area where the riprap is gone. What's happening in that area where I see, you know, now you're picking up some of the water off of the street and redirecting it, but what about that swale that was located up, you know, close to the road?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I think on building B, so what we have on screen here, see that there's a hatch right in front of the building. That's a stone hatch with a little yard drain that's there. So because we're curbing this, we're basically taking that DOT, I guess the water from the DOT right of way, and we're connecting that with conveyance systems into that infiltration trench. And that infiltration trench that we provided in the front will help to treat water quality from the roadway and that area that was swaling that you're referring to prior to it discharging into the existing culvert. On the building A side, or the west side of the site, we had a little bit more room to play with, so we were able to basically curb that street as well. And then we provided a swale on the south side of the proposed sidewalk that ultimately makes its way into that rain garden. And then in concert with some of the comments we received from you folks, we piped that to another rain garden, which will then overflow into that wetland area about 30 feet away from the wetland, so that there's no longer any direct impacts over towards that area. So in both cases, we basically took those existing swales and proposed stormwater features, natural stormwater features, to reroute that.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that swale was really caused as sort of a low point in the road and no curbing. So that's where water concentrated its flows.
Correct. So now we've basically designed the catch basins within the state right of way, which again will have to be reviewed. Once we get through local approvals, we'll submit to the DOT for a encroachment permit, where they'll review the curb cuts, the drainage associated with this. They'll be very interested in, especially given that most of their drainage now flows untreated onto our site, and the fact that we're doing stormwater conveyance in a DOT right of way. They'll thoroughly review the stormwater as well as the town staff.
Okay, I mean, that's all that I have. So thank you for the answers.
You're welcome.
Bruce, is there anybody
Yes.
from the public here that wants to talk about the project?
Let me see, there is one person. Let me see, anybody from the public would like to talk? Please use the raise the hand function on Zoom, and we'll let you talk. Anybody else, second chance? Anybody want to speak? Just use the raise your hand function, and we'll let you speak. I'm not hearing anything, Chair.
Okay, and also based on the initial presentation by Attorney Hollister, we're also talking about keeping this open until the first meeting in November, just as a way to make sure that any and all staff comments and engineering comments can be addressed, correct? And at least that's my understanding of where we're at with this.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So does any other commission members have any other comments or questions they want to raise at this point in time? Okay, not hearing anything. So can I get a motion to continue the public hearing on this matter to the first meeting in November, which I believe is November 2nd?
Yes, sir.
So moved, Ned.
Is there a second?
Second, Mark.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to continue the public hearing to our first meeting in November, November 2nd. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, so hopefully that gives everybody enough time to address what issues might still need to be addressed.
Will,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
So thank you for your time.
Thanks very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, everybody. Next one is 114 Red Oak, but I'm not seeing any of the applicants online here. He's with the South Road. Oh, sorry, no, sorry, Dave's with I think he's with the 80 Call Highway application. Yeah, no, it shouldn't be. I know exactly. I just don't notice that, but I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see them on here. Is anyone here for the Copper Mine Road application? I guess not. I sent them everything too, so
Well, they might have been taking a gamble that the public hearing would go longer too.
could have. So we'll see if they're there at the end. All right.
Okay. All right, so we'll table that one for now, I guess. I don't need a motion to table it, right?
No.
Because
Not
we're
right
gonna take
now.
it up a little
No.
bit later.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if they pop in afterwards.
Yep, okay. So
And then
next on the agenda is old business, Bulwark LLC, lots 18, or sorry,
Yeah.
8120 and 8122 Colt Highway.
Mhm. This one, and I have the resolutions here. I have the draft for the approval and the draft for the denial. Does anyone want anything else open? I can open up the plan set. How do you want to proceed with this?
Well, I think probably proceed with this, at least as far as just a general discussion to see where people may be coming from on this. So Ned, if you don't mind, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the designers, at, several revisions. I know when I was talking, I had asked for several, cut corners on buildings and things to try and get a little more, clearance away from the wetland lines. And they, seem to have addressed all the ones I raised. And again, changing the style of the crossing of the waterway, I thought was, a positive, and they enlarged the size of the structure, made it so that we could maintain the natural waterway course. And so I think that was another good revision. And it's, I don't know, as you want to talk about quality of wetlands, it's there, right there on Route 6. There's a lot of traffic whizzing by this thing. And it's not a large site. So with the efforts that were made towards accommodating some of our comments, and shrinking down some of the corners, I'm kind of leaning towards approving this with the draft approval resolution.
Okay. Mark,
Say my name.
Yes.
I agree with that. I think with the modifications directed by the town staff and by the commission, I think this project has improved over the course of our discussions, and I would be inclined to approve this project at this time. That's all.
good, thanks, Mark. Neil?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's hard. Every time I drive by there, I think about this and try to picture it, but I do think the applicant is addressed the concerns of this commission, and not for us to take any adverse action at this time.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
Yeah, I think I concur with the other commissioners. The initial proposal was likely not acceptable as submitted, but the changes that were incorporated over the span of the hearing, I think make the project marginally acceptable, and there's not adequate basis to warrant denial. So I would lean towards the draft motion for approval.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Yeah, I guess I'm also reluctantly leaning towards approval. It just seems that there's just too much jammed onto the site. I do realize they did a pretty good job at going from a 36-inch pipe to a 12-foot wide culvert. That was a pretty big step forward, but in terms of shrinking the size of the development and providing more buffer, it was only, 2 feet here and 3 feet there. It's like a minimal 25-foot buffer. In this case, though, a lot of the development is impervious surface, whereas before we've had some residential subdivisions with 25-foot buffers, but that also would be another 50 feet further back of lawn before you got to the impervious surfaces. So this seems to be much more intensive, but there's really not a lot of information on potential adverse impacts. So yeah, reluctant approval, I guess I would call it.
Okay, thank you. Bobby?
I have to mirror Robert and Dave's comments. I'm not a big fan of the project, but I think they've done a good job in trying to meet our requirements. And reluctantly, I would most likely see myself approving it.
Okay, thank you. I will say, yes, I do think there was a lot of time and effort put in by the engineers to try to address comments raised by the staff. However, I'm going to go on record as being opposed to this. General comments, I think the development is too intense for that particular area. I'm not sure there was really enough in the way of prudent feasible alternatives, because they are actually having a direct impact on the wetlands. I think one way of eliminating the wetlands would have been going in with the 4-story building. It actually would have created an additional roughly 19,000 square feet of storage area to replace the 15,000 square feet that they were losing on the western side of the property. So that would have been one way to eliminate even having the wetland contact at all. There are other options available in terms of crossing the wetlands, although I do appreciate the fact that the applicant initially started with the pipes and then went to the open bottom box culvert. I think there are still other options that may have been available so that they could have completely avoided any impact on the wetlands, except possibly for the sanitary sewer line for the forced main system. That may have taken maybe about a day to construct that, but I'm not sure that they even looked at the eastern part of the site to see whether or not there was an area that could be developed in that respect. Again, it really goes back to those are the primary issues that I have a problem with. I just think it was a little too intense. As I said, the 19,000 square feet to me would be a better deal than the 15. And there are reasons why they could avoid the wetlands altogether. So I'll be voting in opposition to this application. However, having heard that, based on the comments that I'm hearing, it looks as though the majority of commission members are talking about voting in favor of the application. And I'm assuming, we're also dealing with all of the comments associated with the resolution. So would somebody care to make a motion to approve the application, and then what any conditions or comments may be associated with the draft resolution?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question before we move on to a motion?
Absolutely.
And it goes to the comment that you made that you believe that there are other feasible and prudent alternatives. On the draft motion to approve at the top of the second page, the finding identifies, so the last part of that first paragraph says, find the applicant has provided feasible and prudent alternatives. So the way I read that was the commission would be accepting the changes as feasible and prudent alternatives to the initial application. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman and Bruce?
That's how I would interpret it, yes.
Okay.
I mean,
just wanna-
yeah, I guess that, well, it doesn't matter what the changes, it's just that, do you feel that there's been feasible and prudent alternatives have been properly addressed as part of the application? So it's as part of the application as whole, not as whatever changes they have made. So does that make sense?
It does, because if there are, and again, this goes to the comment that the chairman just made, because if there are other viable, feasible, and prudent alternatives, then the commission should not approve the application. So that's that. I think that's a critical issue, and that we heard our chairman say that he believes that there are other feasible and prudent alternatives. So,
And that's why I thought as part of the denial, I listed them out as part of the denial of things that we had talked about during the meeting, during the public hearing. So the other options that were available to them.
Mr. Chairman, do you want more discussion from the other commissioners as to whether we think there are or are not viable alternatives?
I would, because that is one of the things that we have to take a look at, because we did have a hearing on this. There's a direct impact on the wetlands. So I would be interested in what other folks have to say on this.
This is Ned. I think that's a significant point that maybe I didn't give enough consideration to, about, whether enough research and viable option, other viable options that might be feasible should have been presented. That's Ned.
Mark, you want anything to say?
No, I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Neil?
Yeah, Bob, I think you brought up a really good point, and thanks too for pointing out the line in the motion, the draft motion for approval, because I don't think I could vote for that the way it was written, because the applicant did not present these types of alternatives.
Okay, Dave?
I was a reluctant yes, but I see the point on the lack of a convincing argument that there isn't an alternative that would avoid the direct wetland impact. As small as they made it, but it could be eliminated entirely. And looking at those 4 or 5 things that are up on the screen there, I guess there wasn't a convincing argument made that those weren't possible or feasible. So I think I might be changing my mind here. That's it.
Okay. Bobby?
I think I've gone on from the beginning saying I'm not a big fan of the project to begin with. Like I stated, they have, we've asked them to do things and they've looked into it. That being said, again, I am not a fan of the project. If we feel that they have not met the alternatives or given us an alternative or a reason why they can't do the alternative, then that's on us. I don't feel we should be giving them options. I think they should be presenting the plan, and we should be either approving or denying on the merits of the plan that they're presenting. That being said, I'm like everybody else. I'm not, a fan of it, and I have no problem denying it. I just don't like the project in general.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from folks? So again, I'm going to go, but based on what I initially heard from folks, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the application? And then I would need a second, and then for discussion. So is there somebody that wants to make a motion to approve the application? I may be jumping to conclusions, but not hearing anything, I would say no. So is there a motion to deny the application? Again, and I think the primary reasons that we were talking about this is, I think the intensity of the development.
Yeah.
There are other options available to, stay out of the wetlands. Another option was to go in with the development on the eastern part of the property. It's more square footage for the applicant. It eliminates a lot of the work that's being proposed close to the wetlands, except for maybe the sanitary sewer. And that, if I'm correctly reading everybody, those are the comments that basically people were talking about, and that there really wasn't a prudent and feasible alternative provided. Although, there were comments that were made about some of the work that they did, some of the mitigation and stuff. But I'm not sure, at least to me, that reached prudent and feasible alternatives. So does somebody want to make a motion to deny the application? With that rationale?
Well, this is Ned. I'll make a motion to following the draft denial resolution. Whereas I think your comments about alternatives and maybe I was looking at this wrong as losing a few feet on the back of one building, but I know initially I had said something about why don't we lose that whole building, and make it a smaller development. And I think those types of more significant alternatives were not provided to us. So for that reason, I think I would make a motion to deny the resolution or deny the application.
Is there a second?
I can second that one.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to deny this application, and Bruce, you've got sort of the comments as to why, correct?
Yep, we're pretty much following this resolution that I had drafted up, or that we have drafted up, right?
Yep.
There's nothing everyone wants to add, a takeaway or anything like that. So here's the reasons right here.
Yeah, this is Neil. I heard Bobby say something that I'll reiterate. I don't think we should be suggesting the alternatives. So I believe we should take this section out and just leave it that the applicant provided insufficient alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll up on that.
You have to give a reason. Yeah, that's usually when you deny an application like this, you have to give the reasons for why you are denying it.
Technically, you have to provide the rationale as to why you're denying it. One of them, yes, is that it's insufficient, feasible and prudent alternatives, but there are also some other issues, I think, that directly impact this. So it's not with the intent of trying to provide guidance to the applicant in terms of what they need to do, but it's issues that I think we feel is important. So
right, so we could rephrase this, right, to say we're looking for alternatives or consideration of alternatives that eliminate the need to cross the wetlands, right? Eliminate or mitigate any disturbance of the associated wetlands, et cetera. Rather than giving them how to do that, just these are the concerns.
Well, but this is also based on information that has come through the hearings and the conversations that town staff has had with the applicant as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think these are some of the issues that staff members brought up. We brought up as part of the hearing. And the big one right now is based on the intensity that's provided here. I just don't think the alternatives match what the intensity of the development is. I mean, we've seen this on other projects, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I think we need to be able to provide some support, not just saying it's just not the insufficient feasible and prudent alternatives, but some of the things that were actually discussed. But yeah, it does boil down to any action directly within the wetlands area. And I think some of us feel as though there may be options available to stay out of the wetlands completely.
From the site visit, one of the concerns that I started to think about was there was so much ledge there that there'd be a lot of blasting that would be required. And I think that would be a detriment to the overall area, and you know, a lot of it being close to the edge of the wetland. That was another one of my concerns.
Commissioner Eisner has his hand raised too, Chair.
Robert?
Thank you. Yeah, I put my hand up when we started the conversation about removing the section where the applicant may investigate the 5 or 6 options. And I think that has to stay in for the reasons discussed, that when we're denying an application, we need to identify the basis for the denial. It's my understanding from the Deep Wetland Commissioner training and the Wetland Act that if a feasible and prudent alternative exists, then we should not approve a direct wetland impact. So it's for that reason that I would support the motion to deny. There are other feasible and prudent alternatives. We are identifying at least 5 options, and that's different than prescribing a particular modification that the applicant should make. So I think this has to stay in with our motion to deny.
I would agree with Robert.
If I may, Commissioner, I just want to clarify. I have no problem leaving those in and explaining why we're denying. I just think we have to be very, very cautious in recommending what they should do. For example, like number 2, increasing the 3-story building to a 4-story. That really shouldn't be on us. That's a financial aspect from them. If they want to do it, that's great, but that increasing it from a 3 to a 4 doesn't impact wetlands. That's a financial decision that they have to make. You know what I mean? So I just think we have to be very cautious on what we recommend them to do, and eliminate that or separate that from why we are considering it a denial based on what we feel isn't meeting our needs.
Does
Mr.
say they
Chairman,
may
it's Mark.
investigate, so it's not saying they doesn't say they have to go that route, but it's just, it's options that are available to them that were actually discussed during the meeting. So it's either use all, some, none, whatever they want to do. If they want to, if the whole synopsis about this is, if you guys deny the application, technically they have something to look at. They could maybe go back, address these items, and resubmit back to you. So that's what it's doing. It's giving them a reason or ideas to make modifications to the plan.
But it is still up to the applicant to be able to meet the standards of the regulation. So, yeah.
I think we're all on the same page here. We're just not saying it the same way.
That's the story of my life.
But I think it's a subtle but important difference. It says the applicant may versus the applicant shall. So I think it's subtle but important.
Mr. Chairman, it's Mark here. I have a question. This area, was it a special area where they could, not saying we're proposing that they do it, but is 4-story buildings allowed in this area? I thought in the town there was a limitation on how many stories that you can build.
Bruce?
Yep, there's a height requirement. And it's not the number of stories, it's the number of, it's the height. And the 4-story, we had spoken with the applicant about that during the hearing, and they said that they can do it. And that was an option to them that they had looked at. And if you
So it
recall,
stays within,
if you
Go ahead.
recall, we were getting into a lot of these feasible and prudent alternatives towards the end. And it was just so much at one point, and I think the applicant said at that point, they were just going to proceed with the application as is. So.
This is Dave.
Okay,
I just
thank
have something I'd like to add. In our regulations, section 8B, it says, in the case of an application which is denied on the basis of a finding that there may be feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposed regulated activity, which have less adverse impact on wetlands or watercourses, the commission shall propose on the record in writing the types of alternatives which the applicant may investigate. So I think we're following that precisely.
Thanks, Dave. And I don't have my regulations with me in South Carolina.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
You didn't pack your regulations? Come on.
All right.
So any other comments, questions? So Ned made the motion to deny. Was there a second?
Yes.
Yes, Bob Canto.
Okay. So have a motion to deny the application for Bulwark LLC lots 8120 and 8122 Colt Highway. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. So I think that provides some guidance to the applicant in terms of what it is that options may be going forward. So I think we're done with this one. So back to new business is Carrier.
I've been trying to contact the engineer and the developer, and we're not getting any response. So we'll have to just continue that to the November 2nd.
Yeah, because I mean, it just came in, so we're within the 65 days, right?
Yep. They did their first presentation the last meeting, so.
Okay. Planners report?
Nothing at this time.
Do you know if anybody is going to the Kakiewicz meeting?
I haven't heard from anybody. So
Okay.
I can't make it, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Next is, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of October 5th, 2022 for the inland wetlands meeting?
So moved, Ned.
Is there a second?
Second by Esme.
Questions, comments, corrections? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? I will abstain because I wasn't there. So we will adjourn the wetlands meeting at 8:15 and call the Conservation Commission meeting to order. Looks like a pretty sparse calendar, Bruce, so.
The land acquisition commit meeting was canceled.
Yep. That's the second one in a row, correct, Ned?
Yeah.
Okay. So if there isn't anything from Bruce's side, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the October 5th, 2022 Conservation Commission meeting?
So moved by
So
Eisner.
moved, Mark.
Is there a second?
I'll second after Mark's motion.
Okay. So I have a motion on the
You
floor,
pick and choose which.
the minutes of October 5th, 2022 Conservation Commission meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And I believe we are done for the evening. I want to thank everybody for all the time and effort they put into reviewing the bulwark project. I know that it was not an easy one to look at, so I greatly appreciate your time and effort that you put into that. So with that, have a nice night, everybody.